The old man didn't enter the shop with noise or entitlement. He stepped inside slowly, almost carefully, as if he didn't want to disturb anyone, carrying the weight of years that had taught him patience more than pride. His clothes were worn, not careless, washed many times, stitched with necessity rather than style. His eyes held something deeper than age, they held experience. The kind you don't get from comfort, but from surviving long enough to understand people. He looked around, not with desire, but with quiet hope, as though this small errand mattered more than anyone could guess. Maybe it was a gift, maybe it was a promise, or maybe it was just one simple need he had saved for. Yet before he could even speak, judgment met him at the door. Not spoken aloud at first, but loud enough in glances, in pauses, in the way the air shifted around him. In a world that moves fast, we forget how easily dignity can be overlooked when someone doesn't look the part. No one asked his story. No one wondered where he had come from. They only saw what they assumed, and assumptions, as we soon learn, can be dangerously wrong. Because respect should never be based on appearance. What began as an unexpected act of kindness slowly became something deeper, something neither of them had planned but both of them felt growing quietly between the moments. Clara continued to stop by, sometimes with a check-in, sometimes with a warm conversation that stretched longer than either of them intended. Ethan found that talking to her came naturally, like speaking to someone who didn't just hear him but understood the spaces between his words. Mila warmed up to her too, greeting her with the effortless affection only children can give. Over time, the three of them found a rhythm, small outings, shared laughter, simple conversations that somehow felt meaningful. Ethan noticed that Clara's confidence softened when she was around them, revealing a side of her that didn't need to be a CEO or a leader, just a woman trying to connect. And Clara saw in Ethan a steadiness she rarely found in her world, a man who valued honesty, humility, and love in its purest form. Friendship became familiarity, familiarity became connection, and connection quietly blossomed into love, the kind that feels earned, gentle, and healing. Sometimes the love we never expect becomes the love that finally sets us free. After the slap, the room didn't erupt the way you might expect. There was no shouting, no rush to defend the old man. Instead, there was silence, thick, uncomfortable, and heavy. People stood frozen, pretending to study shelves or check their phones, suddenly fascinated by anything except what had just happened. Eyes dropped to the floor, shoulders turned away, and in that moment, the crowd chose safety over courage. It wasn't that they didn't see it, they saw everything. But fear has a quiet way of convincing us that staying silent is the same as staying innocent. The old man stood there alone, absorbing not just the pain of the slap, but the deeper sting of being abandoned by the very people who witnessed it. Each second stretched longer than the last, exposing a truth we don't like to admit, that injustice often survives because it's easier to look away. No one wanted to get involved. No one wanted to be next. And so the salesman stood unchallenged, mistaking silence for approval, while the room collectively held its breath. That silence, more than the slap itself, became the most powerful sound of all, because it asked a question no one wanted to answer: who are we when we choose not to speak? What happened next was something Jennifer could never have prepared for. The police confirmed that the brake line sabotage wasn't random, it was tied to a rival gang looking to spark a violent confrontation. And now that Marcus had seen the culprit up close, he wasn't just a helpful witness, he was a problem that someone dangerous might try to silence. That realization hit Jennifer like ice. She had spent years fighting to keep her son safe from the struggles of life, but this was something far darker. The bikers, who had seemed intimidating at first, immediately shifted into protectors, insisting that Jennifer and Marcus stay with them at a secure safe house until the threat was handled. That night, when a chilling message appeared on Jennifer's phone, "We know who you are," any doubt vanished. Fear settled in her chest, but she wasn't alone anymore. Sometimes, the people you're taught to fear become the ones who refuse to let anything happen to you. Just when everyone thought the moment was simply a final farewell, something unexpected happened. A witness came forward, prompted by the compassion unfolding before them, bringing details that hadn't been considered, facts that could change the course of the man's fate. Conversations that had seemed final were reopened, evidence was re-examined, and for the first time, hope flickered where there had only been resignation. The simple act of granting a dying wish, a moment of kindness, a recognition of shared humanity, had created a ripple effect far beyond anyone's imagination. It reminded everyone present that even in places hardened by rules and routines, empathy has the power to break through, to transform outcomes, and to challenge assumptions. In that yard, between a man and his loyal dog, the impossible seemed possible, and the world shifted, just enough, to remind everyone that no one is ever beyond redemption. And in that shift, everything changed. The room was no longer the same after that moment. People who had looked away now stood still, carrying the weight of what they had witnessed and what they had failed to do. The lesson had arrived quietly but firmly, settling into every corner of the space. This wasn't just about one salesman or one old man anymore, it was about everyone who had been present, and everyone hearing this story now. Character had been revealed, not through force or status, but through choices. How one man abused power, how another responded with dignity, and how a crowd learned too late the cost of silence. Respect, it became clear, is not something earned through appearance, wealth, or authority, it is something we owe each other simply for being human. The old man didn't need revenge to make his point. His restraint, his calm, and his truth spoke louder than any argument ever could. And for the salesman, that single moment would follow him far longer than the echo of the slap. Because some lessons don't come with punishment, they come with realization. And once you truly see the impact of your actions, you are never quite the same again. So let this story remind us to choose kindness first, because dignity, once lost, is far harder to restore.